Hey there, guys and gals. Chris Bell here from Scale Speed Garage. I wanted to bring you this video. We had an interesting member question in our most recent Shop Talk video hangout. That's a live Zoom call we do every week for our Scale Speed Garage members. The question came up about a downloaded file. One of our members went and found a file for a car body that he liked and wanted to print, downloaded it, and when he began trying to print it, discovered that the wall thickness was too thin for what he wanted to do. And so the question was, is there an easy way to thicken the wall thickness so that I can get this thing to be printable that doesn't require a lot of in-depth knowledge? It doesn't require really going in and editing the file in big complex ways. It ended up being a very interesting discussion. We took a look at a couple sort of hacks that may work to fix the issue, and talked a little bit about some of the different environments in Autodesk Fusion, which is the 3D modeling software we use. While it's not a perfect tool for doing organically shaped things generally, and while it's definitely not the perfect tool for manipulating files that have already been turned into STL 3D files, we do look at a couple of the different environments in Fusion that make creating items in more organic shapes like car bodies possible. And these are things that we will dive into down the road in Scale Speed Academy, which is our new part of our Scale Speed Garage Elite membership, where you have the opportunity to actually learn how to design your own 3D files. And so over the next 36 minutes or so, we kind of look at a car body file in Lychee and look at, is there a way to kind of hack making the body thicker? We then jump into Fusion. We look at the forms environment, the surface modeling environment, and then at the end we kind of talk about some non-software ideas for mitigating the issues that come from trying to print a body that may be a little too thin and susceptible to warping and breaking and whatnot. So I really hope you enjoy this video. We kind of go on a deep dive and have a lot of fun with it. And if you are looking for more information on how to add the 3D modeling skills to your modeling toolbox so that you can not only 3D print parts that are already out there, but also design parts and accessories for your scale model car and truck building, come check us out at scalespeedgarage.com. You are looking for the Elite membership. That is the one that includes the 3D design training, and that includes live courses that we'll run over Zoom, as well as recordings of those courses so you can go back for a refresher or learn at your own pace. Or if you just can't make the time of the live call, you can always go back and watch the recordings as well. Again, that's scalespeedgarage.com, and you want the Elite membership.
And this wall thickness thing is driving me literally up the wall.
Yeah.
Now, is there a way when you do Chitterbox, is there a way like when you go in and do your settings, is there something on, when you set up your printer, the different printers, is there something in there that I can change for the wall thickness or?
No. Let's play. I actually have a body in Lychee right now.
Okay.
So let's just play and take a look.
Look at all Jeep Cherokees.
Yep. This one, Steve, you were mentioning the 143rd wave that we want to bring to Desert Scale next year, and that got me thinking I should do a 143rd Cherokee.
There you go.
Now, I think this is going to cause problems. But let's see if we can get away with something here. If
Okay.
I make a copy of the body,
I know right where you're going. I know right where you're headed.
and
Well,
if we
well,
take
well,
one of these bodies and we scale it,
Yeah.
let's try non-uniformly. So let's try scaling it just width-wise first. So in the y-axis here, the green axis. If I scale this down, say just like 0.5%,
So actually, you got like a body in a body.
yeah. So now we can see here actually kind of how much difference that makes. Or we can look in, say, the tail light housing. And so we can see that it's going to essentially kind of blur some features a little bit, almost like if you were, almost if you took like a double exposure photograph and didn't have it lined up perfectly from shot to shot.
Okay.
Now,
I
I
have
wouldn't
done.
have thought that scaling it down 0.5% would have made a huge difference, but it actually, I mean, we can see here in the license plate light bezel, we can see this white area is the original and this blue area is the new one. So it looks like it did actually
Shrink it down.
kind of create a fairly meaningful difference there. If we look at the door handle, we can see, I'm going to select none of you. There we go. So if we look at the door handle, okay, yeah, we can see it pretty well there.
Yeah.
You know, so
okay.
it is going to kind of blur some of your features. But again, it's important to keep in mind this one's a 1/43rd scale. So at real actual size,
You're not going to see it.
it's going to be about that big.
Yeah. I have done this with 3D Builder because I have some Holden files that the bodies are just really, really extremely thin. And what I did was I sliced the back half off, the back and the front off of it, and then just shrunk the body inside. And I forget how much I did it, but yeah, I did that, and it did help a lot on making the body a lot more rigid and printing out fully, because it would catch on whatever, and you'd have a wheel well that was partially there, or you'd have a big wave in the sill plate or sill of the car, and it helped.
Yeah.
But like I left the front and the back basically off of them. I didn't try to shrink the whole body down, and I do 1/25th on everything. So
Okay. So let's take this the next step then. I'm going to select both of those. I'm going to go into my tools here and I'm going to use a planer cut. And
Okay.
I'm going to make that vertical by holding shift. And I'm going to hit apply. And now it's split those for me. Did it only split one though?
what it looked like.
Yeah, it only split one. So we'll do, I'm going to actually Control Z, undo my way back to before the planer cut, cancel. I would like to planer cut both of these. Is it going to allow me?
Now this is Leica you're using?
Yeah. Okay, so it still only cut one. Okay, so this just adds another step. So we will create yet another copy of the original body. And if you don't select anything here, Lychee just places it in the center where it places it when you import the body. So I know that I'm keeping them positioned in the same place on the build plate. Now I'm going to turn off the visibility of that third body we created. Now I'm going to select these first two, the original one we brought in and the rescaled one.
Okay.
And I'm going to use my merge tool. And I'm going to merge those two bodies together. So now they are just one thickened body. Now it tells me it has structural errors. So we'll ask it to repair it. Okay. So now if we do some planar cuts, we'll select the merged body. Yep. And again, I'm grabbing I want this to be a vertical plane that we're using to cut. So I'm grabbing this vertical axis handle here, holding down Shift, which will give me, that'll click to, I think, 15-degree increments. So I'm going to cut that first body, or the merged body, sorry. And now I'll turn those off. I'll turn the visibility back on the unthickened body. And select that. Do another planar cut at 90 degrees. And so now, sure, we can look at the back halves. Okay. And so now, if I take my thickened body and just move it over to the side a little bit, we can come in and look at the difference there.
Doesn't look like much difference, does it?
Doesn't look like a lot, no. And we would be adding, I mean, so if this was, let's just, for the ease of the math, let's say this wall thickness on the original body was 1 millimeter. Now we have a 1.05 millimeter thick body because we shrunk it a half percent.
So basically what you're telling me here is in order to do this, or what I'm trying to do anyways, in order to correct the problem, is I'm going to have to use another program like this Lychee. Or Lychee, whatever the hell you call it.
You should be able to also do this same thing in Cheetahbox.
Okay.
Now, this is kind of the real hacky way of doing it. So I have wireframe turned on. I don't know if y'all look at stuff in wireframe view, but if you go up to your view cube here, let's shrink this down. Let's see. Oh no, it's in settings, in the preferences. If you go to oh, it is somewhere.
Well, I saw the it looked like a fencing in there, or the meshing, or whatever you call it.
Yeah. And so this shows, well, I'm not finding it right now. There is a way to toggle between.
One or the other.
Oh, is it just under view? No. Okay. Yeah, when we look at the wireframe here, we're seeing the actual structure of the STL file. And so this is, you see it's all triangles. And
Right.
the STL files are all triangular based. Oh yeah, so when you work on an STL file in a program like Blender, you can grab these individual edges and vertexes between the edges where the edges meet, and you can manipulate those. And so the more in-depth but more accurate way of thickening a body is actually a former Scale Speed Garage member of ours, a guy that's probably familiar to a lot of you, is William Geary.
Yeah.
He has figured out a good method for bringing bodies into Blender and manipulating them. So this not only allows you to take a file that was made for printing but doesn't quite have the wall thickness you want and modify it, but it also actually would allow you, if you wanted to go out and grab 3D assets from things like video games. I know there are guys out there that will go, they've found a way to export cars from games like Forza Motorsport or Project Cars. They can export those files, but then they are, like I said, just essentially like a paper model. There's no thickness to them, but they'll take those out of the video game, bring them into Blender, and create wall thickness so that you can 3D print them.
Yeah. Okay.
So kind of bringing this all back and tying it into your original question of, is this something that we will be able to learn in Fusion? The answer to that is no, but I do have plans as we progress in the Scale Speed Academy and the 3D design training. I would like to take a month or two and actually go out and find somebody who's really proficient in Blender and have them come in and teach a couple months of Blender classes. Because I think that is something that would really be a good complement to knowing Fusion. Fusion's really designed and geared towards creating mechanical items, engines, wheels, tires even, but things that are pretty geometric in nature, whereas Blender is much more suited to doing the organic shape. So if you wanted to design a car body, or even just a body kit for an existing car body, Blender's probably the better tool for that. And so I would like to bring in a little sneak peek for the next file pack.
Oh, there we go. Start her up.
I would like to bring in somebody that is proficient in forms modeling to teach you guys and to teach me, because I will absolutely sit in on those classes. But I was just going to show you here. Fusion does actually have where did it go?
In Mesh.
Fusion has a forms environment, and it looks like in a recent release they must have hidden it away in something else.
So I have successfully got thickening done through Fusion. It's not easy. It is like one of the hardest things I think I've ever done. I had valve cover on a K-series that would not print. It was just too thin. And I went through the route that you went there with the slicer, trying to put one inside another, inside another, inside another, to get a wall thickness that was thick enough to where it would go. What I ended up doing was importing the STL into Fusion, cutting it in like 9 different places, and then building a solid part out of mesh.
Yeah.
The 3D builder, you can just put the part in there and you can have it actually extrude down. So depending on how you set it up, you might have to cut it like once or twice, but for valve covers, I do that because a lot of these guys are valve covers and their valves, their heads are too thin. And so I turn them into a solid piece, or I'll merge them together so that when I print it, it's got a little bit more substance to it. But I've done it with blocks and other stuff too. Just putting in a stiffener, just putting in a shape inside it helps.
Yeah. So this is the forms environment in Fusion. And this is what we call T-spline modeling. And so you usually start with a base shape. And so here I've just chosen to start with a box. And then you can essentially come in and modify edges and vertices as you want, essentially just by pushing and pulling them. And you can rotate and whatever else, and get an organic shape that way. If we instead work on a vertex this time instead of an edge, we can look at kind of what that does instead. There it moves all of the edges that are connected to that vertex rather than just that one, just that one edge. We can, if I step back to where this was just a cube, we can create symmetry between faces, which means that if I modify this vertex now, it does the same thing on the other side. And there's a lot of additional options and things you can do here. And you can subdivide things. So I can take these faces and subdivide them into, however many additional faces that I want.
Chris, is it possible? I mean, I'm wondering in my mind now, could you make like a half a tire and then mirror it and get the whole tire all done?
You
What you're doing?
You could.
Okay, I'm just curious.
And I don't know that it would be the most sensible way to do a tire, but it's definitely possible.
Well, I was just that was just an example, but
Yeah.
you could basically do something one half and then mirror it and have the whole thing. Really.
Yeah. And
Okay.
even when we're working in parametric modeling, which is most of what our Fusion courses will teach,
Yeah.
we definitely do make use of mirroring and patterns quite a lot.
Okay.
It's a huge time saver.
Well, sure, I can imagine it would be, especially on a wheel, like with openings that go all the way around and whatnot,
But
stuff
we
like
could
that.
definitely, yeah, if we were going to do a tire in the forms environment, we might kind of start with a donut shape or a torus, and then say like symmetry, mirror, length, width, height. I wish they would tie that to X, Y, and Z. I'm going to guess width is our Y. Nope. Height symmetry, there we go. And then what I would do is probably come in and select these faces here and subdivide them.
Okay.
And I might, go 3 length faces. Well, that didn't quite do what I was expecting it would do. Let's undo that. Subdivide 3 faces. Remove the width faces. There we go. Now that doesn't look like a tire, but it looks like something that could become a tire
Yeah. Yeah.
if we come grab all these edges. And
Bring them down. There you go, you're getting there.
now I don't know why it's... you know what I want to do first? I didn't set symmetry. I should set symmetry all the way around, probably. So we'll just Control Z to step back. That was one too far. We will redo. Oh, let's see. Maybe this is not editable. Okay, so we'll just create a new torus. And let's add in all the symmetry. There we go. Now, with all of that selected, let's subdivide those faces. Only one face for the width. There we go. Now when I modify one, it should modify all of them. Nope. Have to grab two. Okay, now they're all selected.
Yeah.
Let's change that to 6, maybe. And then we subdivide those. Now we'll keep width faces at 1, but let's now bump length faces up to 3. And we'll grab those. That actually looks pretty good. I think I want to leave those where they are. We'll grab those instead. Pull those out. And then these ones, if we pull straight down, so we did -10 there, and then we also, nope. Now I don't know why we ended up wonky here. Let's try grabbing those again.
One of those Korean tires.
And then if we grab all of those in the very center of our donut,
And just open them up.
I don't know why that's not playing nicely. Let's try just grabbing one since we have all the symmetry. Oh, I think I see what our problem is here. Because we have symmetry in the X and Y axis,
Yeah.
but none of these faces are perpendicular to that axis. That's why it's creating our weird symmetry. So what if I try and grab instead just this vertex? So this might have to be a two-step process. So let's try -10 there. And then let's do the same on this vertex. We'll move it out 10. Nope. See, this is why I need somebody to come in and teach us
Yeah.
this stuff.
Well, I didn't mean to tie everybody's night up over here, but I mean, I can see where you're going with this stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean,
There's
I'm
limits in everything, I guess.
I actually really enjoyed just kind of playing around. So, there's another way that I have tried to and had some marginal success getting the start of car bodies done, and that's in the surface environment. So I mentioned earlier that Fusion is strictly a solid modeler, and I kind of lied to you a little bit. They do have a surface environment where you can work in that non-three-dimensional sort of space where you're creating things that are just the outer shell and not a thick object with mass or volume. And the surface environment, so, I could take, but the surface environment works a lot more like the solid environment does than the forms environment does. So I could just create, say, like an arc. And I'll finish that sketch. And then if I say created a new construction plane up here, come in and create a sketch. Now I'm going to turn on my construction geometry so I can project that arc in as what we would call a projection line, meaning it's not an object line. You won't be able to do things with it, but it's there for us to use as reference in this sketch. Now I could turn off construction, and here use my line tool and say, draw something that looks like a boxy 1980s BMW E30 M3 fender flare, for example. And then if I finish the sketch, now what I can do, you can see I have these two profiles here kind of floating in space. I could, for example, use the loft tool, which takes two faces or two profiles and kind of blends them seamlessly together. So I could grab this as my first profile, and then all of those as my second profile. And then I have this sort of shape here. But you see it's just thin. There's no thickness to it. Now that's where the thicken tool comes into play, and we can grab all of these faces, all of these surface bodies, and let's say we thicken that 1.2 millimeters. Now we have a solid body. So when I did things like the hoods for the OBS Chevys, this was kind of the approach I was taking. I was working a lot in the in the surface environment. But if we step back pre-thickening there, we can still manipulate this surface body a lot. So really we could create the whole shell of the body, and then if Fusion wants to play nicely, it doesn't always, but we could then thicken that into a body. But we can, if let's see, I'm going to offset our origin plane there, just somewhere out in space, and then create a sketch on that plane. Now, if I put like a wheel opening in here, for example, then I could actually use this profile as a trimming tool. So I could say, Yep, it already was selected, so it already knows that's my trim tool. Now I just come in here and I click on that and it'll trim that section away.
Basically, you poke the hole in
Yeah.
it. Okay.
So that's just kind of a quick little overview of doing more complex organic shapes in Fusion. It's possible. It's maybe not the best tool, but then again, I mean, I'll pull up Blender if anybody's not taken a look inside Blender yet. Blender is very good at what it is. Blender is designed to do kind of a multitude of things, from what we would use it for, like designing 3D printable objects, to creating animations, renderings, video. You can do all of it inside Blender. But what that means is you just have a gazillion tools. There's a gazillion environments that you can work in. So it's an incredibly powerful piece of software, but it is definitely complex. And again, like I said, for me, my experience started out doing just straight two-dimensional drafting, like architectural blueprints and things in AutoCAD. And then from there, I moved into 3D solid modeling in Inventor, then SolidWorks, and then finally Fusion. And Blender works so differently from all of those programs that I'm just, it breaks my brain. So.
Well, I appreciate it, Chris. I was just, like I say, it's that one problem that I'm having. It's at the moment, that's my goal, is to get over this hump.
Yeah. And that unfortunately was the very long way, probably, of saying, I don't know that you have much option with that file.
Well, I'm going to try that. I'm going to try that other thing. Like I went from 120th down to 125th. I'm
Yeah.
going to try going from 120th down to 123rd. Maybe when I brought it down to the 125th, it narrowed it a little bit. But maybe what I did is narrowed it from 125 down. Maybe, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas
But
maybe if I go
the
from
ratio is going to be the same either
yeah,
way.
well, no. If you start with 120th and you go down to 143rd, that's one thing. But if you're starting at 125th and go down to 143rd, you know what I'm saying? You're starting with a thinner thing if you're going from 125th down. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think so. I think it's going to be the same. I think you're on the same scale. It's going to go from here to here, but you're just stopping here.
I'm gonna try it anyway, because I've tried everything else under the sun, and
Yeah,
it hasn't
give it a
worked.
try.
So
But
I'm gonna give it a
yeah.
shot. But
yeah, no.
just a different way of looking at it, I guess.
Now, all of those approaches that we looked at are, those are on the software side, those are on the file side. Let's flip it and talk about some things that could help on the printed side. And one thing that when people are having issues with bodies warping, or other thin wall parts warping or being really fragile when they're printed, two things that I would recommend there. One would be, what resin are you using? And I know you've told me you're using the ABS like from Elegoo, right?
No, it's any cubic.
Okay. So I have found that I haven't played personally with the Anycubic ABS like, but I have found that even going from the Elegoo ABS like to the Soraya Tech, I did notice a difference in warp resistance. So changing resin could be one thing. Another thing though too is it's really a huge pain in the ass to remove a ton of supports from a body when it's fully cured. So I never recommend like fully curing a body on the supports.
I
However,
don't do that. I don't do
you
that
can
either.
do kind of like almost like if you're gonna par bake some potatoes, or parboil some potatoes before you bake them or something. You can do kind of a same hybrid approach with printing, and you can pull your printed body off of the printer, clean it up, and then while it's still on the supports, throw it in your curing setup for 30 seconds and do just kind of an
Okay.
initial cure, then remove those supports. They won't be quite as difficult to remove as if you did a full cure, and then go do the rest of the cure.